Welcome back to Virginia This Morning, live on CBS 6. Whether you call it part time employment or a side gig, the end result is the same: making some extra money. Yesterday, we kicked off the first part of a three-part series with business strategist Corey Mosley to talk about side hustles. If you missed the first segment, you can check it out later on our website, WTVR.com/VTM. But right now, here's Jessica's continued conversation with Corey.
We're continuing our conversation in this three-part series with Corey Mosley, business strategist. We're talking about the side hustle. Corey joins us now. Great to see you, Corey.
You too, as always. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. In part one of this conversation, we started to look at the definition of a side hustle. So took some time to dig into that. And, for folks looking at replacing a revenue stream, a paycheck, especially in the circumstances that we've had, this can be a really tangible way of doing that.
Absolutely, 100%. One of the things to remember, though, is that you still don't get to abandon the principles of business and what makes businesses successful just because it's a part-time business or a side hustle or something that you're working on. We still want to be following those rules, right? You still want to understand who your market is, understand profit margins to price your product. So many entrepreneurs who start side hustles never get an opportunity to grow their business full-time because they priced it too low. They said, I'm just starting out, so I'm not going to charge this much. And then what they realize is they have no money to take home after they've done all this work. And then they go, I don't know if I can make this a full-time business. So you still want to follow those principles of building a successful business.
That's an incredible perspective, Corey, because as you go into this, we've talked a little bit in part one. I'm going to use that example that you shared, the friend of yours that got into making candles. This was something that was a hobby or a passion of hers, and then now has been able to develop into a thriving side hustle, really defining what it is. But as you get this going, you do need to consider that full perspective as you're looking down the line, or else you might skip a few steps. So that's
Right.
a great tip for success, is looking at it from that high level view when you get started. Other tips for success?
Yeah, set the intention, right? So Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about the principle of beginning with the end in mind. So the question becomes, what do I actually want to accomplish? Am I doing this to make an extra $1,000 a month? Am I doing this so it can be a full-time business? Not everyone wants the full-time business entrepreneurship life. So some people may say in this candle example, hey, if I can add an extra $1,000 to $2,000 a month to my income, right, which means now I've got an extra $25,000, add that with my full-time job that has benefits and has all these job security, if there is such a thing now, but add all these things together, that is the sweet spot for me. So now for someone else, it's, I hate my job. I got to get out of here. I need to try to build this business up as fast as possible because I want it to be $1 million business or a $10 million business. So intention, Jessica, is going to play a big role in the decisions you make, what you're willing to invest, how much effort you're willing to put in, and how much risk you may want to take when going down the path of starting a side hustle and then growing that into something bigger.
That makes sense. And taking the time to set that intention so that you can build in that direction will clearly make a huge impact in the success. You mentioned something, and it sparked an idea for me in terms of this might be generating revenue for whatever reason, replacing a paycheck, or maybe giving you the flexibility to career switch. We use that phrase, time is money, and using a side hustle as an opportunity. You're taking extra time, but it's also giving you some time. Is that an aspect of success in a side hustle?
Yeah, so we've all heard the term, we all have the same 24 hours a day. So it's how you use it. Most of the time, really to start a side hustle, it's about swapping where you've been putting your energy into. So everyone's been Netflixing and chilling, during quarantine, binge watching. We've been talking about the latest shows, but the secret are the people who have been studying a new language, who have been taking some business courses, who have been learning how to build their own jewelry or bake cakes or cupcakes. Those are the people that are honing in on the secret. So it's how you're using your time to then work on that business. And yes, at the end of the day, the goal for most people is lifestyle, and it's the ability to get time back. Most entrepreneurs don't go into entrepreneurship or even start a side hustle so they can spend the rest of their life working 120 hours a week, right? We make an investment up front in terms of building our business so we're able to have more control over our time. So that early investment now, and that's why I stress the execution. Don't skip the steps just because it's only a couple $100 or it's only a couple $1,000 that you want to make extra. Still go through that process and follow ideal customer investment. Follow those steps, because that's going to be able to also tell you what your viability is. So a lot of people do side hustles also to test for viability, to see, could this small idea become a big idea?
That makes sense. And as we wrap up this morning, you utilize your opportunity of still being in potentially your full-time job, maybe with benefits. You have that safety net that you work hard for, but you have that with the opportunity to be able to experiment or test the waters with this side hustle and check that viability.
Yeah, it's a luxury that big companies, right, have R&D departments, right? They say, okay, we're going to take $100 million and go study this to see if this market could be huge. Now, the average person doesn't have that money lying around to do that. So their version of R&D and testing the market is creating a side hustle, starting small, validating their product in the market, so then they can make the decision to make it bigger.
And Corey, that segues perfectly into part 3 of our conversation that will continue. Next, we're going to talk about when it's time, if you've done your R&D and you've had the chance to test the viability, maybe you want to consider taking the side hustle full time. So we'll talk about that next time. Great insights. Thank you so much, Corey Mosley.
Always my pleasure.
All right, Evan, great conversation there, but so many points that Corey went through of things to consider. Was there one that stood out to you?
I think one that stood out to me was a great point that he made, where you don't want to price yourself out in the beginning. I think so many people start a side hustle because maybe they have a regular 9 to 5, but they have another passion they're interested in. So they do it on the side a little bit. But if you're not charging enough in the very beginning for that, you're never going to be able to take it full time. So I thought that was a really interesting point. Go in with the mindset, what do I actually want out of this? And think about that from the beginning so that you're not setting yourself up to, always just keep it a passion.
As we said at the beginning of the show, first time you and I have hosted together, and I had the exact opposite reaction to what he said.
Oh, really? What was your reaction?
He said something about, and I thought you're pricing it too low. That would be my big thing. It was like, oh, I'm just new at this. This is something I'm doing on the side. I'm going to price it really low. And I don't know if you know the Haagen-Dazs story or not, but the story was, it was a little mom and pop ice cream shop in a neighborhood that had done great for a generation or more. But then they started getting, business went off and off and off, and the son took over. And they had great ice cream, but instead of pricing it lower to fight the big competition, he doubled the price, changed the name to a fancy name. That name was Haagen-Dazs, and the rest of that story. So I got that out of that. And then of course, to be able to do your own research and development, I don't know if most of us think about that with a side gig, but obviously that's something that can be done as well. Or you just go on your instincts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people have taken the last year to sort of think about what they want. And many people have found some extra time. And it's interesting to see what folks are doing with that. I know a lot of people will send in pictures of things they're working on for our Everywhere You Are segment. And I'm always amazed by the fun, interesting, creative things that people are doing on the side.
I think Corey should call each one of us at home every day and give us some advice.
Hey, he's a coach. You can sign up on his website. And don't forget, tomorrow we are going to wrap up this series with award-winning business strategist Corey Mosley. We will find out his thoughts on when it's time to take that side hustle from part-time to being full-time.
All right. Coming up in less than 3 minutes, we're going to enjoy Everywhere You Are. Coming up.